un mundo tan desafiante, nuestro reto es ser la luz, dar amor día con día.
Ven y seamos esperanza, testimonio.
Okay, I'll start out with our first panelist, which is Weronika Przebierała. She is from Warsaw, Poland. She is a lawyer. She's the director for the Center of International Law at the Ordo Juris Institute in Warsaw. She gained experience on the team of the legal office in the Parliament of the Republic of Poland and as an expert of the European Economic and Social Committee. She's the author of analyses, reports, and legal opinions prepared for state institutions and non-governmental organizations. Her interests focus on the international protection of human rights and fundamental freedoms, with particular emphasis on the protection of the freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, and the protection of family and marriage. Let's give a round of applause for Weronika.
Thank you very much. If I may ask, I would like to start by expressing my gratitude for the opportunity to be here, be part of this wonderful and unique event. I think that especially today it is crucially important to promote and emphasize the value of the family, the most important community in everyone's life, I think. And therefore I would like to thank all the organizers for doing that. And as you already know, my name is Weronika Przebierała. I have the privilege to represent Ordo Juris Institute for Legal Culture from Poland. And I would like to introduce you to our activities. We are an independent, non-governmental organization, not connected with any political parties, and we are funded only by individual donations of citizens. Most of us are lawyers who 9 years ago decided to establish institute as a precise tool of professionals to defend and protect basic human rights and freedoms rooted in the human dignity, the concept of which was discovered and strengthened by our European Christian culture and faith. On the next slide, I think, maybe we'll start. Generally, we are active in defense of human rights, human dignity, liberty, and including the right to life from protection to natural death. We also protect the concept of marriage as a union between men and women, and parents' rights to raise their kids according to their will and conscience. And we also provide legal assistance to those who share those values. On the screen you may see the structure of our institute. We have a management board which consists of 5 people and is responsible for setting the direction in which the organization is going. Generally, our structure can be divided into 2 divisions, analytical and litigation. Our analytical activities are carried out in the Center for Family Law, Center for Legislative Studies, Center for International Law, where I am directly involved, and medical law and bioethics. Apart from that, we have also 3 more technical sections, which is fundraising, which is taking care of our donors, communication, responsible for our social media, and our administration. In the analytical centers, our activities are mainly preparing scientific reports, monographs, guidebooks. Last year we prepared around 10 of them. And for instance, we prepared a major report on pandemic restrictions from a legal, medical, and economic perspective. We are preparing legal analysis and opinions. It was around 30 last year. For example, on legal opinion on the legal aspects of euthanasia, abortion, tourism, or even support of LGBT demands by embassies in Poland in the view of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. We are also active in media. We are preparing commentaries and statements. We are organizing scientific conferences and debates. Recently we organized conferences about the danger of abortion pills or situation on migration at the Polish-Belarusian border. We are also preparing and submitting amicus curiae statements. These are legal opinions which we submit to the courts, both nationally and internationally, for example, to the European Court for Human Rights. For instance, we submitted a legal opinion to the Constitutional Tribunal in Poland, which ruled in 2020 that eugenic abortion is against our constitution. And in the justification of this ruling, courts referred to our arguments. As you may see on the screen, we are also preparing opinions on the surrogacy market, which is very, I would say, common those days. Especially, there are a lot of cases against Italy in Europe. We are preparing on the abortion law in Poland, since after this ruling from 2020, many women feel that not having an abortion violates their right to privacy under the European Charter of Human Rights. And of course, we are also active on the religious freedom. On the screen, you may also see the draft of laws that we are preparing, but however, we already prepared a lot of them. For instance, we prepared Convention for the Rights of the Family as an international agreement, and then we presented this document during the conference in United Nations headquarters in New York. Now I would like to show you more of our additional activities from this year in which I was directly involved. You may know that rule of law is a bone of contention between Poland and European Commission, as well as between Hungary and European Commission. And we, for example, organized a conference in European Parliament where we invited members of the European Parliament and prepare a legal analysis on this issue. We participated in the Conference on the Future of Europe in the European Parliament at the invitation of ID Group. The ID means Identity and Democracy. It's one of the fractions in the European Parliament. We prepared a report on the recommendations emerging from the Conference of the Future of Europe, which was a great European project prepared by the European Commission. We also, this year, organized an international observatory mission for the parliamentary elections in Hungary. We went to Budapest for 2 weeks. We arranged meetings with representatives of political parties, media, civil society organizations, and then we prepared a final report on those elections. We are also active on the international organizations such as WHO. We are constantly monitoring the process of preparing the so-called anti-pandemic treaty. And we took part in public consultations of that. And in April, we also participated in the United Nations consultation within the periodic review of human rights in Poland at the invitation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We provide a pro bono legal assistance to individuals who cannot afford to pay legal fees. We engage in defense of individuals who are wronged by the legal system and more powerful adversaries. Now we have almost 1,000 incoming cases, including more than 100 cases in defense of the family. We recently succeeded in returning 9 children to their mother. 64 cases regarding defense of life, 87 cases regarding defense of religious and religious sentiments, 48 press corrections and rectifications, 2 on academic freedom, 10 in defense of good name of John Paul II and Poland, and 18 in defense of pro-lifers. These numbers are unfortunately growing. During our work, we encounter cases of violations of human rights and freedom in all aspects of life. We have defended people who lost their jobs for expressing their religious beliefs. You may believe it or not, but there are corporations in Poland, mainly foreign, which would fire an employee for quoting the Bible. In today's environment where political correctness dominates the public life, such transgressions are punishable by loss of work or cancellation from social existence. We have defended families whose right to raise their children according to their will was, and without intervention of the public authorities, was violated. I think that one cannot overlook violations of human rights of some groups of people in the hope that his own right to life, dignity, freedom of speech, freedom of religious beliefs will not be violated soon after. A violation of one of these freedom is a violation of the totality of freedom because it's indivisible. And therefore those who want to promote and defend human rights and freedoms must defend and promote every kind of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. She works, like I said, at one of the top advocacy think tank organizations in all of not just Poland and Eastern Europe, but Europe as a whole. So they're doing great work, and she's leading a great legal center. Thank you. Our next speaker, keeping the ladies going first, will be Deanne Gillespie-Strube. She is an energetic entrepreneur and determined lawyer who loves family and works nonstop to preserve and strengthen families throughout the country. She lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and is a top lawyer in the United States. We're pleased to have you, Deanne.
Thank you very much. Is this on? I'm looking for my PowerPoint presentation. Here we are. Thank you so much. I think I might go down here and stand. Now I can see what I'm doing. Thank you. You know, these are two book covers that came out within the last few years from female attorneys in the United States. One's entitled, "They Took the Kids Last Night: How the Child Protective System Puts Families at Risk." That seems like an oxymoron, doesn't it? The other one is "Protecting Your Child from the Child Protective System." Why would you need to protect your child from the Child Protective System? I spoke with Beth Mahoney, the author of this book. She wrote this during the pandemic. She's a vigorous advocate. Both of these ladies have decades of experience in defending the family. And I've titled this presentation, "Damage to Children and Family Integrity by Wrongful State Interference." Unfortunately, I was introduced. I'm Deanne. It's my beautiful husband, Peter. I started my law practice 37 years ago with a juvenile contract. Things were fine then. I saw no alarming things happening. I grew a law firm, 10 attorneys, 40 employees, and realized that I was being blessed with a platform when it came to my attention of these atrocities, that I had a basis to do something about it. For the last 10 years, I've been working with civil rights, working for state accountability on behalf of families who've been wrongfully interfered with. Why does this happen? There is an implicit bias when a child welfare agency is titled the Department of Child Safety. One cannot imagine they would make any wrong decisions. One cannot imagine they would violate the law. One cannot imagine that they would refuse to follow the law. In Arizona, we have some good law. If a concern comes, the law says you do a thorough investigation. The word thorough means something. The law also says you also consider those things which might refute the concern. I have seen that disregarded over and over, that children are removed without just cause. 70% of the children in Arizona are removed on concerns of neglect. That's an ambiguous term. There is a great bipartisan group in the United States. One of their core values says this, and I just was heartened when I read it. Because the system routinely fails to advance child well-being and frequently undermines child well-being by focusing its resources on traumatic, harmful interventions, we believe the term family regulation system better describes the system that we're all working to change. In fact, I was at a recent conference in Tyson's Corner for the American Bar Association, and some people actually said they should be called the family police. You know, in Arizona, we have $1 billion budget to help this agency help families. 60% of that $1 billion budget comes from federal funds. And you don't get a lot of those federal funds unless the children are in out-of-home care. Uh-oh, what have we done? We've incentivized removing children instead of preventing removal. Anyone knows the trauma to a child from taking them away from their parents. Certainly there are instances where that must happen, but there are too many instances where it should never happen. Look here, there's something called TANF, which is temporary assistance for needy families. This is to help families, maybe in poverty, keep the family together. Look down there, 67% of those funds go to kids in foster care to support the systems and the bureaucracy of the wrongful takings. That's above an 8% national average. I'm quite ashamed of my state of Arizona and their child welfare systems. There's also another major culprit, an overarching federal law for federal finance support. Remember I told you you get federal funds if children are in out-of-home care. There's a very healthy sounding federal law called the Adoption and Safe Families Act that was put in place in 1997 under the Clinton administration. And it provides for those federal funds to go to states when children are in out-of-home care. Well-meaning, but bad. There's a safety net. You can't get the funds unless you demonstrate that you've made reasonable efforts to prevent out-of-home care. That demonstration is nothing more than a check mark on a box to get the funding. So follow the money. That blue box and the gold box, that's the percentage of money going to support the bureaucracies of children in care. The little green box, that's how much money gets spent to help prevent children from going into care. We'll just, in the sake of time. These pink t-shirts up here, ashamedly, these are former caseworkers from northern Arizona. Those t-shirts say, professional kidnappers. And on the back it says, do you know where your child is? What kind of a culture and system would allow trained caseworkers to believe that this is okay? It's insidious. The problem is worsening. More states divert federal money. Because I'm limited on time, I'm gonna keep going. But you know, we also have racial disparity. 63% of black children between birth and 18 will be investigated by Arizona DCS. 33% of white children. And once they get these children in care and they get a false narrative going, if they want to sever their parental rights, which happens too often, they prevail 99.5% of the time. Depriving children. Now, there are some children who need to be severed and need to be adopted. But 99.5%, a third of children taking into care, I don't think so. That just shows the disproportionate racial disparity in African Americans. These are some families I've actually helped. This is an African American family. Their little daughter had leukemia. They were seeking medical treatment, but a pediatric oncologist from a children's hospital felt like she might get discovered for making a wrong medical decision, coupled with the Department of Arizona Child Safety, got an ex parte court order to pull that kid back from New York to Arizona to be treated in the facility where that doctor may have made a mistake. We thankfully got that little girl back to her family, but not after a great deal of trauma. And while in that hospital, she had to wear that ankle bracelet because she was a flight risk, because her parents dared to want to be in charge of her medical care. And her parents were treated like criminals. This is a young lady who was autistic, taken away from her mother, who was a high school teacher, because the state thought she would be better in group home. And that young lady, who is not verbal, that's how she came out of foster care, with those rug burns on her face and matted hair. And for months, she saw her mother 2 times a week, 2 hours a day. A child who needs a mother to the window of the world. I'm gonna go fast now because I'm almost done. This was a family that we helped. They took that child away from her mother. It resulted in a published opinion in the Ninth Circuit which says the state cannot remove children from parents absent exigent circumstances. As a young adult, she got about $200,000 recovery for the trauma she endured. These are families we've helped. I don't have time to tell you all of the stories. This mother's son was taken for 6 months, a Jewish family, not placed with grandmother, not placed in a Jewish home, placed in a home that was completely inappropriate. Finally, we got the child back. All of these children were removed for wrongful decisions. Up on the corner, that's me and my co-counsel Tom Conley, who's a great warrior, and the parents of these children. The Arizona legislature recently provided her and her family $1 million settlement because of unnecessary trauma. That some of the things we're trying to do to get attention, that we must have change. What do we have in Arizona too? We have First Amendment violations. We have a rule that says everything happening in juvenile court stays in juvenile court. If parents dare to go to the press, even though the law says you get due process rights, they have to be respected. If parents dare to go to social media or the press, they can be hauled into court and held in contempt. So there are groups helping. This wonderful bipartisan group, and I brought some handouts from them. Texas is doing great work with some policy changes down there. Arizona needs to take a page out of some of our sister states. These are people working on this, doing fundamentally great work. I became familiar with Mr. McMillan a couple of years, well, about a decade ago. He's really helped in Southern California. The state of California has paid out millions of dollars to families in an effort to bring accountability when the Department of Child Safety has got it wrong. Andrew Brown's been working in Texas. Professor Marty Guggenheim for decades has been a champion in this area. Richard Wexler is a publicist that writes on this for decades. Diana Redleaf wrote that book. They took the kids last night. On behalf of all of the families that I've represented, I'm grateful to be here, to be a voice for too much suffering, too much unnecessary suffering that has occurred in families and children in the name of protection. And I think it's insidious, and I feel very blessed to be a voice for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deanne. We've got to make sure that the state does not usurp the rights of parents, because only kids are damaged in the process. And I'm glad that the courts of the United States are giving judgments against the states when they do this. But again, there is hope. In Texas, a lot of good things are happening. In Florida, my home state, a lot of good things are happening as well. So there is hope. Our third speaker tonight is my friend Nemanja Zaric, who's a doctor. He's a general surgeon. As a student at medical school in Serbia, he founded the Society of Orthodox Doctors, who were dealing with bioethical issues, including holding many lectures in high schools around Serbia, Montenegro, and the Republic of Srpska on topics such as abortion, family, marriage, and similar issues. He's actively involved in the promotion of the natural family and pro-family policies in Serbia for the past 20 years. He now serves as the representative of the International Organization for the Family, which is co-sponsoring this event in Serbia. He's married and is the father of 2 sons, and I turn it over to Nemanja.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Let me just start by saying that it is really a great pleasure to be here today. The World Congress of Families is indeed a unique opportunity to gather together with the like-minded people around the world, people who cherish their families and traditional and religious values above all else. And yes, WCF is the place to be if you want to listen to what the pro-life and pro-family experts and leaders have to share, a place to meet new people, to forge new alliances, and give your fair share of sacrifice in defending our Christian values. But even more than that, WCF is a place to be inspired, and I have been actively involved in the work of the International Organization for the Family and the WCF for the past 10 years, and that inspiration is what keeps bringing me back to every WCF in the past 8 years. 8 years. Now, we don't have a lot of time. There are so many things that we do, so I will just share some examples of what we have accomplished together and some recent events that happened in Serbia, where I come from. Back in 2013, just one day before the planned Gay Pride March in our capital, Belgrade, we have gathered thousands of people on the streets of Belgrade protesting, and back then with us there were 3 WCF members from United States of America, Russia, and France. They gave speeches in Belgrade's main square. we have blocked the main intersection in Belgrade. We didn't back down, and guess what? The government banned the planned Pride Parade in Belgrade. It was a huge victory back then in 2013. Yet, starting from next year, the LGBT activists managed to have regular parades for 8 consecutive years, although there were always more than 5,000 police officers guarding only several hundred people, but that's Serbia. And regarding this, I have to mention that we have organized 2 regional conferences of the WCF in Belgrade so far, and in the last one, our great friend, a great man and organizer of the World Congress of Families in Tbilisi, Georgia, Levan Vasadze, said, "Don't worry when 5,000 police officers guard 200 gays. Worry when 200 police officers are guarding 5,000 gays," which is actually true. In the following years, so after 2013, LGBT organizations managed to organize regular parades, get the LGBT ideology in our school books, and even managed to get 2 new laws adopted in our National Assembly, along changes of the law on discrimination and on gender equality, but luckily the law on same-sex partnership didn't have support of our deputies and the President of Serbia. And not to forget, we have a lesbian prime minister, which is absolute paradox, since overwhelming majority of people living in Serbia are deeply conservative. And we say that what they are trying to impose on us is an ideology, and not just an ideology, but a totalitarian ideology. As Alan Todd describes, a totalitarian ideology is, quote, "the deliberate use of censorship and propaganda aimed at controlling all aspects of culture and at indoctrinating all sections of society, especially the young." So we can see that that is actually true. So the way things were going, we in Serbia were sure that we are on the same destructive path that already made so much damage in the United States and in Western Europe. And I guess that the LGBT lobby had the same feeling, believing that in the end they will prevail and be victorious in Serbia. So they applied for and they won the organization of the Europride event scheduled for September. That was scheduled for September this year in Belgrade. For those of you who don't know, Europride is a pan-European Pride event that's been organized for the past 30 years, so this is actually the 30th anniversary, or was supposed to happen this year, in different countries and cities around Europe. At this point, I would like just to say that the Serbs, who are overwhelmingly Orthodox Christians, are not some isolated ethnic group as we are so often represented in Western liberal media. Even the founder of Serbian Orthodox Church, a prince who turned monk, Saint Sava, said that we are meant to be East for the West and West for the East. Our geostrategic position made us a society of so-called contact culture. And that is why some might argue differently, but I believe that is what gives us actually strength. And that is why any true Orthodox Serb, and I'm an Orthodox Christian, will always support anyone who shares our common Christian values, especially if that someone is fighting to preserve our Christian way of life. Because we Christians, whether Catholic or Orthodox or any other Christian denomination, we do share absolutely the same values when it comes to life, faith, freedom, and of course family. So the LGBT organizations and liberal human rights organizations all believed that it's time to raise the bar of pressuring Serbian society into meeting their demands, and so they plan to organize this Europride. Well, let me tell you, it didn't go well for them. 3 weeks before the parade, thousands gathered on the streets of Belgrade in a procession, demanding that the parade should be forbidden. A week later, some 15,000 people were on the streets again, and just 1 week before the beginning of the so-called Pride Week, about 60,000 people were on the streets, which for us is a huge number, with the patriarch of the Serbian Orthodox Church holding a prayer and a speech where he said, among other things, quote, "The measure and criterion for us is the word of Christ, the word of God. Christ guides us, tells us what is good and what is not, what is black and what is white, what is established by God as natural and what is unnatural, or as Saint Maximus the Confessor says, counternatural." Brothers and sisters, some say, I'm sure without thinking about it deeply, what it actually means, that this attitude of ours is a crusade. Are we waging crusades if we sit in our houses? We did not go to another country, to another people, to impose our way of life or our values on them, not even by grace, let alone by force. We did not do that either by faith or by any other idea, and countless times in history we have been subjected to various attempts to renounce ourselves, to not be who we are, to become someone else. Thank God, here we are with our heads on our shoulders, alive and well, and we still are what we have been. So who is leading this crusade? Others have come to our house to promote their ideas to us, steal from us, and impose their ideas on us. They want to tell us what we should be. We are the objects in this story, and we are the ones subjected to violence. They are raping our minds, they are raping our souls. They would like to, but they won't be able to. End quote. This firm stand of our patriarch, along with the tens of thousands of people on the streets, was enough for the Ministry of Internal Affairs to actually forbid the Europride event, which was a very big thing. So what happened? All hell breaks loose. The pressure on the government was tremendous. Deputies from the European Parliament, heads of international civil rights organizations, Serbian left liberal politicians, Mr. Bilčik, Special Rapporteur for Serbia in the European Parliament, even the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, were quick to condemn such decision and to demand that the Europride must be allowed. It happened in the end, just not how the organizers were imagining it will happen. 5,200 policemen guarded the event off, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 LGBT people with their guests who walked for about 300 meters to the place where they had their concert. All in all, it was a victory for us, and the face of Belgrade, our capital, was saved. Another very important thing that happened is that the Patriarch himself, right after these events, wrote a special prayer for the family, which is now obligatory on the services in our church. So to us who are believers, this is, of course, of great importance. So far we can be satisfied what's happening in Serbia. The overwhelming majority of people in Serbia are, in a broad sense, conservative. And that's a good thing, but we do have to remain focused and to be very active. Maybe it's not such a bad thing that Serbia is not as developed, as you probably know, as some Western countries, who share similar but even bigger problems. As one of our philosophers said, if progress leads to abyss, then any delay could prove to be a road to salvation. Thank you.
Thank you, Nemanja. I know you and the Serbia are doing some great stuff out there, and it's not always easy. The pressure they put on the Europride last month is incredible, but the Serbian people, including the Orthodox Church, stood firm, and they had tens of thousands of people marching in the streets, which is truly incredible. Okay, our next speaker is what I call the Leonardo da Vinci of Mexico. It is Rodrigo Ivan Cortez Jimenez. His resume is one of the most impressive I've ever seen. He is president and co-founder of the National Front for the Family in Mexico. He also is vice president of the International Political Network for Values and co-founder of the Institute for Family Policy Analysis. In addition, he's a university professor here in Mexico, and he's the co-author of at least 10 books. Let's give a round of applause for Rodrigo.
Estoy profundamente agradecido por estar aquí. Muy contento después de una intensa, difícil semana que parecía que iba a ser catastrófica, y pues bueno, aquí estamos con buenas noticias. No sé cuál apretar para avanzar. El verde, perfecto. Push the red button. El trabajo que se tiene que hacer debe ser local, es decir, tanto atender el frente de lo global como el frente de lo local. En esta ocasión solo me referiré al frente de lo local, que es el Frente Nacional por la Familia. Perfecto. ¿Quiénes somos? El Frente Nacional por la Familia somos un movimiento cívico permanente que busca incidir en la agenda pública a favor de los pilares de la sociedad. ¿Cuáles son esos pilares? La vida, la familia y las libertades fundamentales. ¿Por qué? Porque sin vida no hay paz, sin familia no hay desarrollo y sin libertades no hay democracia. Ok, ¿qué buscamos? Lo que buscamos principalmente es generar algo que llamamos ciudadanía de la familia. Buscamos construir un puente entre representantes y representados para que se generen leyes, políticas que pongan a la vida, a la familia y a las libertades en el centro de la agenda nacional. Políticas que protejan el verde grande, perfecto, gracias. Políticas que protejan a los más vulnerables y que realmente promuevan el desarrollo del país. Y parece que México no necesita más cultura de muerte. Tenemos suficiente. Por eso, nosotros nos comprometemos a promover una cultura de la vida con perspectiva de familia en el respeto a las libertades fundamentales, como son la libertad de conciencia, de creencia, de expresión y la libertad de los padres para educar a sus hijos. Parece que ya no jala. Algunas de las actividades que hemos hecho, para poner un ejemplo, pues ha sido la activación de varias marchas y una nacional para tratar de parar una reforma constitucional que pretendía vaciar de contenido la institución matrimonial y subordinar la política interior y exterior de México a la agenda de la ideología de género. Pues gracias a Dios y la sinergia que se generó, eso se pudo lograr. El verde grande no funciona. La que sigue, por favor. El método que utilizamos es el método FIAT. FIAT tiene una doble connotación, porque por un lado es un acrónimo. El acrónimo es formar, informar y activar esa ciudadanía de la familia para dar el testimonio que tenemos que dar en la escena pública. Para los que tenemos el don de la fe y la gracia pues de la fe, fiat también significa hágase. Ese hágase, pues que es el hágase en mí, según tu palabra, pues también es algo que nos inspira. Esto es pues el esquema, digamos, esencial de lo que nosotros tratamos de hacer. Formar, informar y activar la ciudadanía de la familia para transformar la esfera pública en el ámbito legislativo, en el ámbito ejecutivo, en el ámbito judicial, enriquecer el debate público, tanto en lo que son los medios de comunicación, redes sociales, la esfera pública virtual y lo que es la movilización específica, pues ya con lo que es la esfera pública presencial, offline, para que se respeten las libertades, la vida y la familia frente a lo que es el populismo, el laicismo, la cultura de la muerte y la ideología de género. Y nada más para poner el ejemplo de lo que es esta semana que está terminando. El tiempo se veía súper adverso, súper nublado. Veamos por qué. Por un lado, teníamos una amenaza mayúscula en la Cámara de Diputados. Pretendían hacer una reforma con más de 50 iniciativas adversas a la vida, a la familia y a las libertades, para imponer la cultura de la muerte, la ideología de género y la ideología de la cancelación a nivel constitucional. Obviamente, pues en México suena un poquito mejor que en Estados Unidos, pero nosotros dijimos ni madres, ni padres, vamos a permitir eso. Y bueno, pues se hizo toda una activación, se apretaron todos los botones rojos que se tenían que apretar, denunciamos todo esto y pues bueno, esto se paró por ahora, ¿no? Y además, esto pues es una buena noticia. Hacerlo en sinergia, además, con buenos legisladores, que todavía hay, tanto diputados como senadores, hacerlo en sinergia con diversas organizaciones, pues aquí presente Aarón Lara, que es de nuestra organización, pues hermana y amiga, con la cual hacemos muchísima fuerza, y ahorita ya él presentará su organización, pero una sinergia fabulosa, en donde se sumaron muchísimas personas. Apenas se estaba desactivando esa en la Cámara de Diputados y se estaba encendiendo otra en el Senado. para hacer exactamente lo mismo, pero a nivel de legislación secundaria, por lo tanto, más grave porque es más inmediato el que se pueda aprobar. Y pues, ¿qué pretendían? La transversalización de los llamados derechos sexuales y reproductivos, es decir, aborto como derecho reproductivo sin temporalidad, la eliminación de la objeción de conciencia del sector salud para quitarle todos los obstáculos al aborto, la introducción por ley de la llamada educación sexual integral como derecho sexual desde la más tierna infancia, fomentando la confusión de género y la sexualización de la infancia, lo cual es gravísimo. ¿Y qué creen? Pues también se paró. Y la cuestión es que terminamos esta semana, pues también algunos están aquí presentes de los que participaron en este foro que se logró hacer, también en sinergia con organizaciones nacionales e internacionales, con legisladores, y fue algo, la verdad es que muy, muy positivo. Se pudo también parar, aquí hay compañero mexiquense, ¿no? La cuestión de en el Estado de México también querían meter el vaciamiento de la institución matrimonial, y pues bueno, eso también se pudo parar. Y pues esto se hace a través de la activación, como mencionábamos, tanto offline como online, tanto con el cabildeo directo con legisladores como con presión social. Y fíjense cómo está terminando la semana. Se termina la semana con una cuestión muy positiva en Durango, donde gana la vida ante una iniciativa de aborto, en donde un gobernador como el del estado de Nayarit, ante una iniciativa de aborto, en una declaración pública oficial dice: soy médico, a mí me gusta defender la vida. Y en el caso de Nuevo León, se aprueba la nueva constitución de ese estado, con un artículo en donde se protege la vida desde su inicio. Por lo tanto, pues estamos terminando la semana exactamente al revés de como pintaba al principio. La verdad, para el broche de oro final, pues estamos aquí en el World Congress of Families, celebrando la vida, celebrando la familia, celebrando las libertades en una sinergia tanto local como internacional. Estoy profundamente agradecido, conmovido y alegre para seguir esta lucha. Yo, la verdad es que al principio de esta semana, híjole, pues lo veía todo negro, y pues bueno, de todas maneras echarle ganas. Así que pues le echamos ganas, y como me dijeron por ahí, uno pone su casi nada y Dios pone su casi todo. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Mexico and the whole conservative movement owes a great debt to Rodrigo. He's really fighting the good fight for all of us in the world, and in Mexico in particular. Well, our fifth speaker tonight will be Aaron Lara Sanchez. He is the president of the Citizens Initiative in Mexico, which is an effort by civil society to defend life, the family, and freedom, especially in the legislative area. He also chairs the Ibero-American Congress for Life and Family, which has a presence in 20 countries. I was at a wonderful conference they put together back in March in Guatemala. They had a great turnout. The president of Mexico was there. They had international speakers coming there. Aaron did a great job. He's a great leader, not just in Mexico, but around all of Ibero-America. So let's welcome Aaron Lara.
Bien, me van a disculpar que voy a hablar en español, las personas que nos acompañan de otros países, pero a mí me han dicho que para hacer negocios hay que hablar en inglés, para enamorar a una mujer hay que hablar en francés, pero para hablar con Dios hay que hablar en español. Así que, como estos temas que vamos a tratar son cosas de Dios, me voy a permitir hablar en el idioma que nos permite hermanarnos con nuestra hermosa familia latinoamericana. Iniciativa Ciudadana es un esfuerzo de la sociedad civil que está buscando, perdón, le di muy fuerte aquí, provocar incidencia pública. Esa es nuestra gran debilidad como providas. No estamos logrando la incidencia pública en nuestros países, y eso es lo que nos ha provocado un tremendo desafío. Nos estaba platicando nuestro hermano que viene de Serbia, que ellos tienen una manifestación de miles y no pasa nada en los periódicos, pero la manifestación LGBT acapara todos los medios de comunicación. Tenemos una gran debilidad en estas batallas que son por la vida, la familia y las libertades, que se dan básicamente en tres esferas. La esfera académica, que es sumamente importante, pero donde también tenemos grandes debilidades. Ellos se están presentando, es decir, los grupos LGBT, como verdades científicas absurdas, cuestiones que tienen absolutamente ningún rigor científico. Y ahora están presentando además legislación que no guarda la objetividad jurídica y por supuesto no cuenta con este respaldo científico. Y nosotros como Provida nos ha faltado esa argumentación. No hay ningún solo congreso donde no lleguemos para hablar con los diputados que nos pidan información académica. Ahí es donde necesitamos trabajar. Segunda cosa es el ámbito político, la esfera política. Y bueno, yo trabajo con las iglesias evangélicas en México y en América Latina. Y cuando uno dice la palabra política, a los pastores les salen ronchas. Sí saben que son ronchas, ¿no? No sé cómo decirlo en inglés, pero bueno. El problema es que tenemos un conflicto tremendo para entrar en este ámbito como si se nos fuera vedado o prohibido, pero es ahí donde se hacen las políticas públicas, es ahí donde se hacen leyes que pueden tener un impacto ya no solo nacional. La semana entrante estaremos en Lima, Perú, para protestar contra la OEA, que se ha convertido en una agencia adoctrinadora y que con resolutivos obliga a las naciones a tener que someterse a una serie de legislaciones que van, insisto, en contra de la objetividad del derecho y, por supuesto, en contra de la ciencia. Pero la parte donde nosotros debemos tener influencia y participación directa es la esfera mediática o pública. Ahí también es un tema. Hay mucha gente que ama la vida. A ver, ¿cuántos aman la vida? ¿Cuántos aman la familia? ¿Cuántos aman las libertades? ¿Y por qué no nos manifestamos? ¿Por qué no estamos en las redes sociales? ¿Por qué no somos los que acaparamos los encabezados de la prensa? ¿Por qué no somos los que nos entrevistan cada noche en los noticieros? Nuestra falta de incidencia mediática o pública es lo que ha hecho que la causa Provida no tenga el peso que debe de tener. El máximo objetivo de la incidencia pública es modificar la realidad. Eso lo han logrado los LGBT. La incidencia pública se refiere a los esfuerzos de, díganlo conmigo, ciudadanía organizada. Digámoslo, ese fue el ensayo y salió muy mal. Ciudadanía. ¿Ve qué difícil es organizarnos? Va por último. Ciudadanía. Ese es nuestro talón de Aquiles. Y ahí es donde tenemos que trabajar para influir en las políticas públicas y los programas de orden público. Se hace por medio de la persuasión y de la organización de ¿quién? Yo sé que a estas horas un estómago vacío no tiene buenos oídos, pero ya estamos a punto de terminar. Así que, miren, nosotros necesitamos que la ciudadanía esté informada, motivada, capacitada y movilizada. De nada sirve todo lo demás si no nos movilizamos. La importancia de tener información, motivación y capacidad es que tenemos que sacarla fuera de nuestros espacios. Tenemos que ir a la calle, porque ese es el antídoto. Esta es la marcha que hicimos el 3 de septiembre en Villahermosa, Tabasco. 15,000 evangélicos salimos a las calles a marchar, llegamos al Congreso y presentamos 4 discursos, solo 4 discursos, de 10 minutos cada discurso. Después de esta marcha, toda la agenda LGBT, toda la quitaron del calendario de este periodo legislativo. No van a tocar el aborto, no van a tocar el tema de los matrimonios homosexuales, no van a incluir el tema de las terapias de conversión, nada. Todo salió porque un grupo de cristianos nos organizamos, salimos a la calle y con solo 4 discursos logramos frenar la ideología de género en el estado de Tabasco. Fue algo muy emocionante, déjenme decirles, cuando íbamos entrando a la explanada, traíamos un camión con unas enormes bocinas y comenzamos a cantar el himno o la canción Somos el pueblo de Dios. Y todos los periodistas fueron lo que resaltaron. Al grito de Somos el pueblo de Dios, avanzaron esos contingentes. Eso es incidencia pública, estar ahí y hacer ruido. Y los mexicanos somos muy espaciales para hacer ruido, ¿a poco no? Bueno, solo hay un mexicano aquí en la sala. Estamos enfrente de una gran amenaza, que es llevar al último grado de la perversión humana, haciendo servir las leyes para la injusticia. Eso tenemos que detenerlo. Eso tenemos que cambiarlo. Esa es la batalla que tenemos que dar, porque no es posible que nosotros estemos permitiendo que estas cosas ocurran frente a nuestros ojos. Un escritor español, César Vidal, en uno de sus últimos libros, escribió esta frase que a mí me conmueve, a mí me impacta mucho. Él dice que la ideología de género avanza y seguirá avanzando por el gran desplome moral de la sociedad. Fíjense el diagnóstico. El problema es el gran desplome moral de la sociedad. Dice, este es el gran reto. Si se quiere contener la gran amenaza, la gran ofensiva de la agenda globalista y la ideología de género, la salida no es solo electoral. La salida está en un cambio del tejido social, y eso es lo que a mí me impacta. Debe ser un cambio que llegue al alma de las naciones. Estamos aquí luchando por el alma de México y vamos a ir a Lima para luchar por el alma de América, y eso es lo que ustedes deben llevar a cada una de sus naciones. Tenemos que salvar el alma de nuestras naciones, o será una batalla perdida. Sin embargo, yo creo que esa batalla la vamos a ganar. Esa es mi fe. Aquí en México tenemos una frase, cada vez que hacemos un mitin, nosotros tenemos un himno nacional que comienza diciendo mexicanos al grito de guerra, pero nosotros decimos mexicanos al grito de vida. Así que yo voy a decir mexicanos al grito de, y ustedes van a decir, pero con ánimo, así como ¿va? ¿Listos? Mexicanos al grito de ¡viva! Mexicanos al grito de ¡viva! Mexicanos al grito de vida. Que Dios los bendiga. Gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. I love about Aaron. He gets us all our blood going. And if there's anybody in the world who's willing to take the fight to the opposition, to the streets, to the towns, to the cities, it is Aaron and his group. The people, like, he gets thousands of people to demonstrate recently like he did, because he's going to defend life, he's going to defend the family, he's going to defend our freedom. And that's what we need more of in this world. So thank you, Aaron. Finally, our last but not least, our last speaker will be Benjamin Bull. He serves as General Counsel of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation in the United States, where he leads the Law Center fighting child sexual abuse and sex trafficking in our court system. He has won 14 jury trials without a loss against pornographers in several United States. He also served in the past as Chief Counsel of Alliance Defending Freedom, where he led a team of more than 60 lawyers. Let's give a round of applause for Benjamin Bull.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to turn this a little bit to a darker topic, I'm afraid. I'm a lawyer. I represent clients. One of my clients was a 15-year-old girl. Her name was Rose Kalimba. She lived in a little town in Indiana. Rose was in the 9th grade. I lived with her family, an intact family, mom and dad. She was in the 9th grade. Good student, not at the top, but made B's. She was a majorette in the marching band. She was one of the people that twirl these batons and stuff, and wanted to go to college to be a nurse, and loved her, has had a younger brother, younger sister whom she adored. A couple houses down was a close friend of hers. She was walking home one evening from her friend's house. 3 boys, two 17-year-olds and an 18-year-old with a knife, or grabbed her, threw her in the back of their car, and took her across town to an empty house where they proceeded to sexually assault her all night long, beat her to smithereens, even stabbed her at one point. The next morning, they took her to another part of town, threw her out of the car like a dead cat. She was totally naked. Good Samaritan came along and found her and took her to the hospital, and they did all the tests, called the police, and caught the guys who did it. Two were punished as a minor, the other one was punished as an adult. So you can imagine this was traumatic, beyond traumatic for her, and took her 3 or 4 months to get her life back together so she could go to school, and she finally went back to school. From her classmates, she learned that the guys that raped her and beat her up videotaped the whole thing. And they uploaded it to a website called Pornhub, which was receiving thousands of views every week. They were splitting the profits. Pornhub it's an online website that, with hardcore pornography. They make their money from advertising and the amount of traffic that goes there. And the uploaders are able to split the profit through advertising dollars with Pornhub. So the people who raped her were actually making money from the videotape that was uploaded. This is a form of sex trafficking. Another client of mine who was 16 years old was on a date with an older boy whom she really liked. He took her out, gave her a date rape drug, and which she passed out. He raped her. And life went on. A few weeks later, a friend of hers parent called her parent and told her that, did you know that your daughter is on the internet? Because the boy who raped her videotaped it, uploaded it online to one of these websites, and was splitting the profit with these platforms. And there's a point to this, but another client of mine who was 12 years old when she left foster home, this is another victim of the foster system, she was badly treated and molested by her foster father, so she ran away from home when she was 12, went out on the street. The only way she could survive was to find a pimp who prostituted her, took care of her, gave her food, gave her a place to live. When she was 14, he made her start doing porno videos, which she videoed and uploaded to Pornhub and started making money. The law firm that I'm started 3.5 years ago exists for one purpose: to use the legal system to destroy the online sex trafficking and pornography industry. That's what we do, that's all we do. Most people don't realize that the old pornography industry, as we knew it years ago when I was, hate to say it, when a young man growing up, was basically dirty magazines and maybe a skin flick at a porno theater in the bad part of town. And sex trafficking was basically a guy in a funny hat controlling prostituted women on the street, which he controlled, maybe beat up from time to time, put on drugs. All that has changed. For the most part, there's now been a merger where hardcore pornography and sex trafficking have merged online. The big money in pornography and the sex trafficking industry is to videotape trafficked women and children, upload it to the internet, and that's where you make money. I have a short video of my law center. Can we run that if it's available right now? It's about 3 minutes long. Hopefully it'll go.
Predators are using the internet to find, groom, and sexually exploit children. Predators are using the internet to find. children.
The child sexual abuse material they generate is distributed widely online, where tech and pornography companies monetize it.
Sex buyers routinely purchase people who have been prostituted and trafficked, both in person and online. New victims are abused every day, while someone else profits from their exploitation, all to satisfy the appetites of sex buyers.
Pornography.
We can skip it. Yeah, let's listen to it. Okay, thank you.
Predators are using the internet to find, groom, and sexually exploit children.
The child sexual abuse material they generate is distributed widely online, where tech and pornography companies monetize it.
Sex buyers routinely purchase people who have been prostituted and trafficked, both in person and online. New victims are abused every day, while someone else profits from their exploitation, all to satisfy the appetites of sex buyers.
Pornography, child sexual abuse, and sex trafficking have merged in online spaces. They've been aided, fueled, and profited from by big tech and the commercial sex industry. This has created a crisis of disturbing proportions.
Nevada's legal cover for prostitution conflicts with federal laws against sex trafficking. The state of Nevada's legal cover for prostitution also violates the 13th Amendment's ban on any form of slavery or involuntary servitude. Survivors deserve justice, and the commercial sex industry must face accountability.
The pornography industry and its profits are built on sexual objectification, abuse, trafficking, and exploitation of all kinds. The companies that own sites like Pornhub and Xvideos know that their websites are rife with child sexual abuse material, rape, racism, and all kinds of criminal content. They must be stopped.
Technology companies and social media platforms are some of the most prolific distributors of online sexual exploitation content in the world, including content advertising sex trafficking victims and depicting child sexual abuse. Big tech tries to use the law to shield itself from accountability for its failures. But this immunity has led to impunity, and it must end.
The most effective way to counter and dismantle the online exploitation industry is lawsuits.
Litigation has been the linchpin in movements to combat smoking, opioids, and more.
The same is true for the movement to end sexual exploitation. The Nkosi Law Center has proven this. We're already winning. Now, it's time to scale.
Through the law, we can set social norms, hold exploiters accountable, and help survivors find justice. We've already brought groundbreaking lawsuits against the companies behind Pornhub and Xvideos, as well as international tech giants like Twitter.
With your partnership fueling these efforts, the commercial sexual exploitation industry can be stopped, and its enablers can be brought to justice.
Thanks to you, countless survivors will finally be able to pursue the justice they deserve. Millions of potential victims will be spared from ever experiencing sexual abuse or exploitation.
There is a tidal wave of social change that will come from precedent-setting rulings against exploiters and new laws protecting the innocent and the vulnerable.
This isn't just a dream for the future. This is a plan for right now. Will you join us?
Let me stand up if I could. I think a little bit better on my feet, like a good lawyer. You get the idea of what's going on. Most people don't realize that the company I just mentioned a minute ago, online platform called Pornhub, has had, in the year 2000, had 7 million videos uploaded to that platform from all over the world. That's 19,000 videos a day of young people being trafficked and being uploaded, and their videos being monetized. So the Law Center was created basically, as I said, to destroy the online sex trafficking industry, and which is a pretty audacious goal considering they have more money than King Midas. They've never lost any lawsuits. They have more lawyers than money can buy. But we looked at big tobacco and saw how was big tobacco brought to its knees. It was basically 3 things: lawsuits by the hundreds. The culture caught up with the lawsuits, and cancer victims from smoking and so forth. And then also the scientific research caught up with the lawsuits, and all these cases that started being lost at the beginning began being won eventually. And so that's our model. So we have a class action lawsuit against Pornhub, as I mentioned, representing all the children in the United States, millions of them, who've been trafficked and victimized by Pornhub. We won. Pornhub, of course, asserted total immunity, saying that they couldn't be sued because they're an online platform. In a ruling that was the first of its kind, the first ever in the United States, a federal judge in Alabama held that they not only could be, were probably liable for engaging in illegal sex trafficking and disseminating child pornography, and allowed our case to go forward, and we're now in discovery. Pornhub, having pretty good lawyers, has said, let's talk. We'd like to settle this lawsuit. So right now we're in mediation. Now, we're willing to settle if they'll give us $500 million to set up a fund to help all of these children. Now, don't think that the only violators, online platforms, or companies like Pornhub or Xvideos, are some of these hardcore porn outlets. Twitter, for example, most people don't realize it, but there are tens of thousands of child pornography images bought and sold and traded on Twitter every single day. We represent two 13-year-olds who met a 16-year-old girl online who was gorgeous, they thought. She sent them some sexy pictures of herself, said she'd send more if they sent pictures of themselves, being 13-year-olds. What goes through the mind of these kids? They did that, and they escalated. The pictures got very sexual, let's stop it there. You can use your imagination. And the girls' demands got crazier and crazier, and the boys finally said no. They stopped it. 4 months later, the girl they thought was a girl posted their videos and pictures on Twitter. It was child pornography. The 16-year-old girl wasn't a girl at all. It was a 45-year-old pedophile pretending to be a girl online. When the boys and their parents contacted Twitter and, using Twitter's portal, reported that this was child pornography, Twitter finally responded after some delay and said, "We've reviewed the videos. We find that it doesn't violate our policy. We will not take it down." The 13-year-old boy, this is Twitter, which is famous for censoring what it wants to censor, right? The 13-year-old got on the portal again and said, "What do you mean it doesn't violate your policy? We were 13 years old at the time. We're minors now. Did you even look at the videos?" Through a friend of a friend and Homeland Security, can I get... This is better. Through a friend of a friend, an officer at Homeland Security finally reached out to Twitter, told them, delete these videos, and Twitter finally did that. Now, Twitter could adopt AI imaging software tomorrow and eliminate 95% of the child pornography on its platform. It's refusing to do that. We sued Twitter in the federal court in San Francisco, which is the backyard of Silicon Valley. The judge, Twitter, of course, asserted absolute immunity under federal law. Federal judge rejected their claims, allowed our lawsuit to go forward, and we're now in discovery. Twitter immediately took what's called an extraordinary appeal to the Ninth Circuit, and that case has been set for argument, I think just before Christmas. We have an opportunity in that lawsuit to blast open the doors to liability for these online platforms. They're allowing their platforms to be used to traffic child pornography and victimize women. But it's not just Twitter. We want to, 3 years ago, there were no lawsuits filed against online platforms for engaging in sex trafficking activities. Today there are over 20 in the United States, 2 major lawsuits in Canada. And it's not only Twitter. There are now sex trafficking lawsuits filed against Meta, which is Facebook, TikTok, Omegle, and a couple of other ones. And so again, when we launched the law firm 3.5 years ago, we wanted to destroy the online sex trafficking industry. We knew we couldn't be everywhere all the time. So we wanted to be a catalyst for other law firms to file lawsuits. So we began developing relationships with survivor networks. And we're finding survivors who are victimized online and giving them to other law firms to bring their own lawsuits. But we're at the beginning of a battle, and it's only like the second inning of a 9-inning game, but we're encouraged so far. We've got men on base who scored some runs, and Goliath is beginning to wake up. There have been some articles in the New York Times, one article about our lawsuit and about the child pornography on Pornhub. The day after the article was published, Pornhub deleted 11 million videos from its platform, all child pornography, because of one New York Times article. So the battle goes on. If you'd like to learn more, our website, where you could Google my name, Benjamin Bull, or you could Google National Center on Sexual Exploitation, or Google endsexualexploitation.org, and take a look at our website, and we could use your support. We'd love a chapter of our law firm or an alliance of our law firm with Mexican attorneys that have a passion for doing some good and helping children and stopping the abuse of this online trafficking. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Benjamin. It really is enlightening, and it's good you're taking the fight to everybody. I just want to thank everybody for coming today. Our panel is completed. And I just want to say we have some great people here, 6 people who are in the trenches, fighting for our kids, fighting for life, fighting for our families, fighting for marriage, and fighting for our freedom. If everybody here could find another person like that, or you become that person, we can turn the tide. Because there are more of us than there are more of them. We just need to go to the streets, need to go to media, need to go to the courts, do everything we can so we can turn the tide for the family, for life. Thank you for coming, and have a great day. Hasta luego.
En un mundo tan desafiante, nuestro reto es ser la luz, dar amor día con día.